the continuing conversation about police reform and how we should be looking towards measures, in different measures. We talked about, I think, in the last Crude, talking about how we need to make sure that we participate to keep the reform going, because just because now it's been established and people are, and once again, I want to continue to thank all of y'all who are protesting out there peacefully, because that's really getting the movement. But along with the protests, we talked about making sure you're calling once a week to your congressional offices, your senator, your congressman or congresswoman, because that's what really moves it. They hear you. This is a participatory government. We have to participate, and I know for so long we've been fooled into thinking that our vote doesn't matter, but if it didn't matter, they wouldn't try and suppress it. Me and Shelby really got into a great pre-production meeting about why one of the reforms that we've heard over the years should be enforced is people should be enforcing their own communities, their own cultures. And when I say that, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted as segregationist thinking or separation thinking, but it is, and I did touch on it a little bit, a couple of episodes, where a majority of your force has to represent what you're policing. Because we've seen when it's not that. And I'm not just talking about our Caucasian officers. I'm just talking about just in general in other countries or whatever. When you're in charge of a group that is not your own, I don't want to say more likely, but you are tempted to enforce a little harder on a group that you may not relate to, or enforce a little harder on a group that, in case of African Americans, has been stereotyped as a dangerous group. When you've been brainwashed for so long that a group or an entity is ignorant, lazy, and dangerous, physically dangerous, and you then have to go into that group, make your living.
That's a great point.
And enforce, because a part of making your living is you're enforcing, and all you want to do is, because at the end of the day of any job, I don't care if it's Walmart, policing, airline pilot, doctor, you just want to go home to your family. So once again, I'm not excusing it. I just want us to understand the mindset of why I believe it's more important for those in each culture to police themselves.
We can have people from different races
and
come
cultures,
in, so they can understand how we operate or how each other operates.
And that's such a solid point, because thank you. And that's such a great point, because when he says that, I want it to be, at least in a perfect world, I want to be people from cultures that are willing to wanting to come, not being forced.
Exactly.
And to me, that's such a solid point, brother, that's where we want to go. We want the Caucasians and the Latinos that want to be in the city and want to learn and want to help, predominantly now Chicago's predominantly and Latino and all that.
African Americans in
certain neighborhoods. Absolutely.
And learning each other's culture.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be, and Shelby wouldn't be who we are if we went to schools that were predominantly one, culture. We went into a multicultural schools, and
it has been a blessing.
We wouldn't be here in front of you if we hadn't.
So if I hadn't grown up in multicultural areas, I wouldn't be as broad or as empathetic.
Absolutely, open-minded. Absolutely,
cultures.
We are never about separation or all of that. But there's a time and a place when there's something that's so wrong. Sometimes you just have to pull it back. And
to its core.
Right, and get back into the core. You take care of your culture. Now, like Shelby said, you don't forget other cultures, but you have to really start looking at the data and all of that other stuff.
We can't help others until we help self.
Absolutely.
That's how every race is.
And I think when we, especially in the African American community, when we start getting officers that are predominantly Latin or African American, and those that are Caucasian that really care about our culture, I think then you'll start seeing more community policing really being in effect.
We're not policing our own neighborhoods. This is not happening because our neighborhoods will begin to flourish. Negative things will die off or at least subside greatly.
There used to be what they call neighborhood block clubs. We talked about this a long time ago. Check our archives. And the neighborhood block clubs were instilled to get everybody in the neighborhood or whatever to kind of know each other, have a get together every now and then just to get to know each other. And then from there, the community policing would be there because everyone would know that. Chicago purposely disbanded it.
Why?
We don't, you know what I'm saying? Just
Your
because
opinion.
it was, in my opinion, because it was working.
Yeah.
And the community, like Shelby was hitting on, all of the, the positives that were happening in the community, those in power, I say they, those in power were like, we've bought into, what the stereotype has been. We've gotten back into buying the stereotype. You can't trust us.
Yep.
Can't trust one another, and so therefore you can't come together. You don't see that neighbor, neighbor to neighbor. Now sometimes you'll see it, but you don't see them talking as much because they're still like, I just want to mind my business,
Yep.
instead of it being a community.
Yep.
So they've isolated us more. Where when you go to these other neighborhoods, Latin, Caucasian, hey neighbor, how you doing? And hola brother, and there's a brotherhood.
Yep.
And so that's on us to get back to that. That's on us once again. And I'm a communication major. I really stress words. We have to stop calling each other the N word, the B word. We have to start saying brother and sister.
Yep.
We have to start really, and then from there, when we start seeing each other in the street and start embracing each other like that, then the trust can build, and then from there, the community can police it. So Shobi's hitting it right on the head. I think there was a government push to kind of subdue
Definitely.
it for job purposes.
Definitely,
I truly
yeah.
believe, and then on our communities end, we've laxed. We've laxed. We can't keep expecting others to do our job.
True.
We just can't. And this movement that's going on with all the murders from, Trayvon Martin up to this George Floyd and everybody, all of this movement right here, this is telling us we cannot get lax. Whatever reforms come, whatever change, even if there's more minorities in there, more women are in office right now, there's still a push forward. There are women who are still not being paid the same as a man.
Yep.
There's still people who are not getting job opportunities or even looks because of the color of their skin or the culture that they come from. So there's still work to be done, and the police reform is just a small point. So Shobi's hitting it right ahead, but once again, we have to do our part.